This is the Thriving Immigrant Podcast. I'm Paul Adeyeye. Today, I'm honored and thrilled to be speaking with a remarkable individual. His story is nothing short of inspiring. He lost his dad at the age of 14, thereabout, went ahead to study medicine, graduated, and left Nigeria. He found himself in Dublin, Ireland, working as a cleaner, a toilet cleaner, and also as a security guard. This was at a point where he was already a licensed medical professional. So he did that for a while, finally started practicing medicine, and decided to move to the US. So he's been in the United States for over 20 years, and he's currently working as a medical professional, an intensivist to be precise, providing care and support to people at one of the most critical and vulnerable moments of their lives. Not only that, he's also a real estate investor. So today's story is a story of resilience, reinvention, and what it means to truly thrive in a new country. I'm so excited to have Dr. Lajide Lawoyin on the Thriving Immigrant Podcast. So welcome, Dr. Lajide, and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Awesome. Okay, so I know that your immigration journey, it's been a long time that you left Nigeria. But if you don't mind, can you just speak briefly about your immigration journey, how you left Nigeria and how you found yourself in the US?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I think you've alluded to that a little bit. I'll just you said I lost my dad. Actually, you were close. I was 15, so I clocked 15 in November, and my dad died the very next month, in December. That was 1989. And my dad was a gastroenterologist, trained in the U.S. He trained he went to medical school at Albany, New York, and then did a gastroenterology fellowship at the Henry Ford in Detroit, Michigan. So, so losing my dad was earth shattering. You know, I was a young kid, barely 15, and before then, I spent a very short life with him, I'll say, because my biological parents were not married. So my dad and my mom were not married. My mom is still alive. She's doing really well. I just came back from Nigeria 2 weeks ago, and I spent some time with my mom. But they were not married, so I did not live with my dad until I was about 5, 6 years old. I think I left my mom when I was about 3. So between 3 and 6 years old, I was kind of bounced around. That's the way to kind of look at it, because I lived with some of my dad's relatives around that time. But that short time I spent with my dad was very, very impactful. That's the main thing I can say. It was amazingly impactful. He was just everybody looks up to their dad. So I looked up to him, and he talked to me a lot about medicine. I developed the interest in medicine from him, and the promise was that I was going to do medicine in the US like he did. So when he died, obviously that
Okay.
dream of mine died with him, and that was devastating. But as a kid, I had my mind made up that I was going to go to the US anyway. So I finished medical school in 2000 at the University of Ibadan. And then I did housemanship at the University of Lagos at Luth. And then left Nigeria the very next year. I went for my camp, NYC, and then left. I went first to Ireland because I couldn't afford the USMLEs. I didn't have any money. We had to change schools when my dad passed away, change cities actually. We're living in Ogbomoso. We had to move to Ibadan, change schools and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of things happened around that time. Our finances went from, we could say maybe middle class to almost nothing.
Mm.
There were a lot of things that happened that just take too much time to be talking through. But financially, we hit rock bottom. So we changed schools and all that, and my uncles were doing everything they could to kind of prop us up. He had a private hospital. They were trying to prop up the hospital as well as much as they could. But once he wasn't there anymore, it was just not the same. So I left Nigeria in 2002, 2 years after I finished med school, and went to Ireland because it was just an easier path. It was cheaper for me to go to Ireland. I didn't have money for the USMLEs anyway. Um, so I went to Ireland first, but the problem at that point in Ireland was that the exam to start practicing medicine was not, it wasn't like the PLAB where it's scheduled. It wasn't scheduled. They had to have like a cohort of applicants before they now give you an exam date. So they didn't have an exam date for about 1.5 years while I was there, over a year
Mm.
anyway. So that was when I had to work and clean toilets. And so the first 3 months, that was what I did, clean toilets in the nursing home. And I remember kind of looking at myself in the mirror, because I have to, wear my gloves and all that stuff. Then I look myself in the mirror and just kind of shake my head. But I had to stick with it, and I had to be tenacious about it, and see the long term dream rather than the short of what's going on right then at the moment. And I was lucky after doing that for 3 months, I was able to get a security job where I worked at night. And at that point, Ireland was booming economically. So they had
Mm.
this thing they call Celtic Tiger, where the economy was just booming and they were building all these trams and all that stuff in central Dublin at that point. So what I was doing was all the contractors will leave their stuff at night at the site, and I was in one small cubicle with no heating. I had to buy my own heating, and then I have to go around every hour and clock so that they know I'm not sleeping. So you clock around, and I wasn't the only one that did it. Quite a few other medical
Okay.
professionals that I went to class with did this stuff like that too. So my story is not unique. It's
Mm.
just that I think that with the platform I have, I need to tell my story just so that people that are in the early stages of their journey are encouraged that there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and giving up is not an option. You got to push.
Thank you. That was quite profound. I really love you how you demonstrated some vulnerability, like talking about your challenges, because everybody will go through that phase if you are moving to a new country. It's just that maybe now with technology, maybe there are more opportunities for people, but you still will need to, for lack of better word, maybe struggle a little bit before finding your footing. So I can absolutely relate with that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Lajde.
You're
So
welcome.
my next question would be, you've been practicing medicine for over 2 decades. That's a long time. How has that space, how has it
Thanks
evolved?
for trying to date me, right? Yeah.
How has it
I'm
evolved?
dating myself. Yeah, it's been 25 years. Yeah.
It's been 25 years. So I didn't want to use the word years. That's what I'm saying, for 2 decades. So it won't look like you've
Okay.
been there for a very long time.
I like that. Just 2 decades. Just two.
Just two. Okay. So how has it been over the years? Have you noticed any significant changes in that space in the last 20, 25 years?
Oh yeah, there's been a lot. So I'll tell you this. When I first started in Ireland, I did psychiatry residency. So I remember even if you look at my yearbook from school, I tried putting in there that my most likely area of specialty was surgery or psychiatry. So I've always liked psychiatry, and most of that came out of my early childhood experiences.
Hmm.
So obviously a lot of things have moved on. There are things that they called childhood traumas and all that stuff. Like I didn't see it that way, but when your parents are not married and you lived with several people, and there was really no stability for me in
Yes.
my first 6 years of life.
Hmm.
Um, I sincerely, I didn't see it that way. I just thought that, it was rough life, so what. But yeah, those kind of things will impact you as you grow up and as you develop, either for good or for bad. It,
Right.
it depends on what you make of it.
Hmm.
Um, uh, I I think that my mental space became stronger because of the adversities I had as a kid. Um, but I was going to talk about medicine changing. So I did psychiatry mainly because of my childhood experiences, and I felt that that was something I wanted to know more about. There in Nigeria back then, I don't know how it is now. There was a lot of uh, you know, people were not really big into psychiatry. There was a little bit of, you kind of look at people with psychiatric illness as, oh, they are crazy
Extreme.
or yeah, exactly. So there was that in the community generally. So, and that kind of drew me to it because I knew that I had an unstable childhood to an extent, and I knew that I had, issues with emotions growing up, anxiety, that kind of stuff. So I felt that learning more about psychiatry was going to be good. So I got into a psychiatry residency in Ireland, and I completed it. It was with a place called St. John's of God Hospital. It's still there. Great psychiatry training program.
Oh,
I completed my psychiatry training. And I left Ireland in 2007. So I was training in psychiatry between 2003 and 2007. I completed, I passed my exams as I was exiting Ireland. And when I got here, I did internal medicine.
okay.
Uh, so, uh, and since then, I finished that in 2010, and I've pretty much been in the ICU since then. I
Wow.
worked in a place in Michigan. So I did my internal medicine training in Cleveland. It's one of the hospitals with the University Hospital of Cleveland called St. John of God, St. Vincent Charity Hospital. Since I left there, I worked in Michigan for about 10 years. With a hospital called, they've changed the name now to Trinity Health. It used to be called Mercy Health. That's in Muskegon, Michigan. And I've been in the ICU since I worked in the ICU, it was an open ICU. So I got to learn a lot of stuff in the ICU. Worked there for about 10 years, left there in 2019 and came down to Georgia where I'm at right now. I worked a little bit for a short time in Georgia as a night doc, nocturnist, and then the pandemic hit, and they was
Hmm.
the ICU docs. They had one ICU doctor just came to me and said, "Look, you take great care of our patients, and at night, just come and join my team and help me during the day." So, and that's what I've been doing since then. uh, a lot has changed with medicine. There's, AI is a big thing right now.
Right.
But medicine is that there's a lot of it that takes that is repetition.
Hmm.
It's more like pattern recognition. You After doing something for so long, like now in the ICU, most of I still get things that will stop me from time to time, but most of my management is almost reflex. You just seen it so many times. A patient comes in, you know a little bit about them, and you know exactly where they're coming from. You know how they were the day before. You know what to do. If I do this, this is where they're gonna go. If I do that, that's where they're gonna go. You kind of you just know.
Hmm.
And do you get stung from time to time? Yeah, because we're not God. But most of the time, your prediction just it's because you've seen it over and over and over again. But what they cannot teach you in med school will be, and I love what I do, but trying to talk to families, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so glad I did psychiatry.
Hmm.
Talking to families of, on the average day, maybe half, a little bit more than half of my patients are on ventilators. They can't really talk to
Imagine.
me. They're in medically induced comas. So you have got to talk to family, their brothers, sisters, mothers, sons, depending on how old they are. And because of what's going on with their loved ones, they are in a heightened emotional state. They're
Hmm.
anxious, they're upset, they're angry, they're frustrated. So you have to navigate those waters with families, and that's not something you can really learn. You just have to, sense things as they are. There's some things you can learn about it, but in
Right.
the heat of the moment,
Are, are you
things
able to
will.
apply it?
Oh yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm so glad I have that basis in psychiatry, because
Yeah.
that comes in very, very handy.
Do.
Just reading the room, because every family is different. Every family is going to react differently to the same disease process.
Hmm.
Uh, their reaction is going to be different from day to day, depending on how their loved one is doing. But I've being able to harness the experience I have from psychiatry to actually help others. And I didn't tell you one thing. I'm also board certified in addiction medicine
Oh.
in the U.S. So that's something else. So when I was in Michigan, I did a lot of I worked in methadone, chronic methadone clinics, Suboxone, that kind of stuff. And I look at people with addiction as
Hmm.
people that, unfortunately, they had issues in life at the early points of their lives. And I'm sure you probably know this, that your brain is not fully developed until you're about 25 years old.
Yes.
So, and when people get exposed in their teens to some of those things, and they get hooked on it, and the damage is done. And then they have a lifetime of almost slavery to this disease. And somebody's got to help them. Somebody's got to help them. And I'm glad I can do that sometimes.
Yeah. It's very interesting, and thank you for walking us through all that because I would say you are lucky because the two fields that you identified, you were able to achieve them, you were able to study your psychiatry, and now you are still doing what you really wanted to do. So now the skills that you gathered, the knowledge that you gathered from psychiatry, you're able to apply them in your everyday lives. And you also mentioned something that I find very interesting in the sense that, you were talking about the fact that you are used to the pattern. You've seen it every now and then. And it's easy for you to develop blind spots to how to communicate to your patients or to their relatives. Because, of course, somebody passed away yesterday, another person passes away today. I've seen it a lot of times. It's not a big deal anymore. But being able to still communicate that because of the skills that you've gathered from psychiatry, I think is going to give some difference in how you are managing your patient every day.
Mm,
Then you talking about mental health and all that just reminded me of my experience back in Nigeria because I also sold some antidepressant at some point. I was promoting escitalopram to doctors. And I remember then we were talking about somatoform disorder. It was even not so common for GPs to identify or even know how to do those diagnoses then. I'm not sure about now, but because the way mental health is being treated or being managed in Nigeria is completely different from the Western world. But I think things are changing and we are making progress.
yeah.
Okay. So I know for a fact that medicine is one of the most is one of the highly paid professions and maybe one of the most secure professions in the US too. In your own case, you're not just a medical doctor, you've also diversified, you are also a real estate agent or real estate investor. So I'm curious, what sparked your interest? Why real estate for a medical doctor?
All right. Yeah. I almost wanted to talk about what we first talked about before I go into this, but I don't think I'll delve much into that. I think one thing I'm just going to say is that the psychiatry in Nigeria and the way it differs from here, I think that the there has to be a happy medium. The fact that
Mm,
here over here too, a psychiatrist seeing somebody and just throwing medicines at them is not right all the time.
mm,
There's a role for medication, but that pulling that trigger very quickly is may not be right. Obviously getting therapy and stuff like that. In Nigeria, maybe nothing is offered or people are seen as, oh, they're crazy or something. That's not right.
mm.
But having them just come in and the next thing is to write them antidepressants may not be right too. You may, I think personally, I think the average person should have a therapist, personally.
Yeah.
Because life
Especially at
happens.
this time. There's a lot
Yeah,
going
I
on in the
think
world
so.
right now.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot going on. I've said it with our kids. I know you're going to talk about raising kids in the US later on. But so I digressed. I just wanted to mention that
Yeah.
the two ends of the spectrum are probably not right. It's probably somewhere in the middle.
And I
So
agree.
getting into real estate, what sparked my interest is actually interesting. It's a story that I don't say that often. But I told you I was in Ireland and spent about 4 or 5 years there. I had a colleague of mine, and I talked to his wife about this. He passed away many years ago. But he when we were in Ireland, I bought my first house after I settled down as a doctor. After I was done with my security job, I got a job as a doctor. I got a two-bed apartment, and I was good. And then, but this guy, he also married. He got married to another colleague of mine. We're all classmates together, and he just kept buying houses. And so on his third acquisition, and he's a very good friend of mine. We're actually roommates at some point. I know some people will know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention names. That was why I talked to his wife before, and I said, "Look, I'm going to talk about this story if you don't mind." And she said she doesn't. So,
Mm.
I asked him, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he just said, "Look, that's legacy. You got to, if you can afford it." And at that point, they were given 100% mortgages to
Mortgage.
physicians.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
100%. So unfortunately, like I said, he ended up passing. But before he did, I think he bought about 4 or 5 homes, and he was the first person to make me kind of just think about it. So when I left Ireland and I came to the US, I knew it was something I wanted to pursue once I
Mm.
settled. So once I finished my training in 2010 in the US, and 2011 or 2012 thereabouts, I bought my first rental property. And over the years, I've purchased several, sold some, made ton of mistakes.
Okay.
Lost money, made
Mm.
money, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride, but it's been really, really good.
I can
More
imagine.
recently, now a general partner with Excite Capital.
Right.
So we help them raise capital together. They are my mentors, and it's just been a great, great relationship with that company.
I really love your story. I strongly believe that real estate is one of the best ways to build wealth as long as you understand how to do it and you don't over leverage yourself. Because I know a lot has happened in the last 4 5 years. We have people talking about no, it's better to rent, not to own. But I think maybe some people are not even very conversant with different strategies to build wealth in that space. So, what kind of real estate strategies do you follow, and what would you recommend to a new immigrant listening to you right now and also thinking maybe at some point I should start investing in real estate?
All right. Well, one thing I would recommend right off the bat is don't go it alone.
Hmm.
Yeah. I tried going it alone, me and my wife, for years, and going it alone, um, it doesn't have that many benefits like people would think.
Hmm.
And it comes with some issues. Obviously, you'll do well. Going to real estate doesn't yo-yo like the stock market. Obviously there are real estate crashes in the past. There was a significant one around 2007, 2008. So real estate will crash. Everything has a cycle. There will
Right.
be, so there's nothing that is uh, safe proof
Hmm.
or proof that, there's no risk at all. So there's always going to be risk. But when you do it together with other people, what I mean is look for a mentor. Mentorship is
It's
key.
key.
It's core. You get to learn a lot of things, and I've done a lot of mentorship over the years. And some of them are better than the others, and so that's part of doing your own due diligence. But trying to do something like that alone comes with a lot of cost, because real estate is, people just don't become doctors.
Hmm.
They go to
They go
school
to
for
school.
it. So real estate is huge. There is a lot you have to learn, and like giving an example, people that are athletes in the highest level, they have coaches. Highest level,
Absolutely.
they
Hmm.
have coaches, and that's for a reason. Even though they are at the peak of their careers,
They still
there's
have
still
coaches.
somebody that's coaching them.
Yeah.
So, but as physicians and as other healthcare providers or professionals, people want to just do it alone. They figure it out. I'm smart, and that happened. I'm talking to myself right now because I did that for a few years and I got burnt a little bit. So,
Hmm.
so
And with
that would be
technology
my
now,
advice is to look for a coach
okay,
and somebody you can trust, somebody you've done your own due diligence with or about, and talk to them and tell them your dream, and they can walk with you.
that's very spot on. Thank you for sharing that because I know that with what is going on right now with technology, there is so much access to information,
Yeah.
unlimited access to information, and you think you can just sit somewhere, do your research, and you are good to go on your own.
Mhm.
So, and I don't think that the, the information you even have online, I don't think you have all the details because it's different from someone advising you from the experience and someone
Yeah.
else advising you from maybe research
Yeah.
and opinions. So that's a very powerful one, and thank you for sharing that. So if you are listening to this podcast right now and you think this is something that will benefit someone, please feel free to share it with someone and let's build a thriving community one day at a time. If you've not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the subscription button so you can get notified when new episodes are being published. Okay, so Dr. Lajide, for you now that you've been in the Western world for a while, how do you have any advice for people raising kids in this part of the world and still trying to connect them to their roots?
Yeah, well, raising kids is obviously every family is different, and one of the things we did is that myself and my wife speak Yoruba. We don't speak to ourselves. Our kids speak English. We speak to our kids in English but we've always spoken to them to ourselves in our native language. Obviously, both of us are Yoruba. Uh, and that that might that sparked stuff in the kids as they grow older. They're more interested in the language,
Hmm.
um, and taking them back to the homeland is another way of I think the first time my kids were there, I think the youngest of them was 3 years old, and the oldest was about 5 or 7 or something. So they've been there several, multiple times now.
Okay.
I think that would help. But like I said, raising kids totally different ball game. I
Yeah.
was lucky enough that I was able to do most of. I was the only one working for a long time,
Hmm.
and she was able to stay with the kids, and that helps with their what would I say, with their foundation as well. When
Absolutely.
one of the parents is able to stay home and just take care of the kids. Not that that is not possible in every family. It all depends on the
Right.
finances and how you're able to, if we're able to support financially with everything that's needed. But if one of the parents is able to stay home, then it's better for the kids, especially when they're younger. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I agree with you completely. Well, not everyone has that privilege to be able
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, definitely. That's a privilege. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a privilege that can happen.
But we also live in a world where there are more remote opportunities now that gives you that opportunity to that flexibility to work and still have some family time. So
Yeah.
apart from people that study medicine, like from medical doctors that can't treat patients remotely. So
Well, there's a little bit of that going on too.
yeah, that's true.
There's
That's
tele
true.
ICU, there's tele neurology, tele infectious disease. Yeah.
Right. That's true. How excited are you about the future of medicine?
Yeah, I'm probably in the mid third of my career, right? I don't know how many more years I'm gonna put into it. So, but I think the future of medicine, it's bright. I don't see any dim in it. I think that the AI should be embraced by physicians. It will help with a lot of stuff. I know there's been talk about some AIs taking medical exams and smashing them, but I don't think that AI will take the place of the average doctor.
Mm.
Maybe they might need less of physicians, but I don't. I think that AI should be incorporated into medicine rather than being seen as coming to
It's
take
a
over.
threat.
So it should be made to enhance
Mm.
the work of healthcare workers, whether they're physicians, physician assistants, nurse practitioners, nurses, CRNAs. It doesn't really matter. It should be able to help enhance their work rather than take over their work, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I think that's more and more that's what's going to happen in the future, rather than just have AI just do everything. I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay. So AI can take the job to the next level, not taking their jobs away.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. This has been a very insightful conversation. I just have maybe two or more questions for you before we call
Sure.
it a day. I know a lot of doctors. I have a lot of doctors around me, and I think the struggle of a medical doctor as an immigrant is a little bit different from the average immigrant. I don't know about the US, but in Canada, it takes a while before they can they can convert and get a license to practice in Canada. And that time can be very challenging. Some people are probably, someone may be listening to you right now and is on the verge of giving up. Like, I've been here for years trying, and maybe I should just do something else. What would you tell such a person who is trying to not transition, but trying to just get his license? He's already in a new country, he's struggling to get his license. What would you tell the person?
So, well, I'll say every case is different. So it depends on the specifics of it. But what I'll say is that, and I've had some friends in Canada that have been, and even in the US, so that have been a little bit, things have been a little bit difficult for. Um, I think knowing what your goal is and being consistent with it.
Hmm.
Consistency is, people get, oh, you want to be impacted or you want to encourage people. Consistency is doing what you need to do even when you don't feel like it.
Hmm.
A good example is going to the gym. That there are times when, I really don't want to get out of that bed, but that's when you just pull yourself by the bootstraps, like, no, I'm going. So consistency with whatever it is that you want to do, that doesn't mean that pivoting, you may need to pivot from time to time. That doesn't mean that you don't do that. When pivot means that, if you've been trying to have a specific goal, and then sometimes some opportunities come in for
Hmm.
something slightly different,
Different.
but that's going to put you on the same level, then you pivot.
Hmm.
So that you're not, consistency doesn't mean you're rigid. Rigidity is not good.
Hmm.
Uh, no matter what, it's going to be that one goal and that's it. One of my mentors actually told me about a goal that, if your goal don't scare you, then you
It's
need to
not big
change it,
enough.
or it's not a big goal enough. So but having that goal there, but knowing that if opportunities present themselves that can make you pivot, you're flexible enough to pivot and look at something else that might get you to your dream.
Destination.
Yeah, yeah, and also, having a mentor, even in the medical field, is great. Like right now, I have a lot of mentees through LinkedIn that have reached out to me, and I'm kind of focused on medical doctors, people that have finished medical school, trying to navigate their way
Hmm.
into the diaspora. Whether they're in Nigeria, some of them are in the US, some of them are in
Different part of the
different parts
world.
of Africa. So I have some that are medical students, but I'm really not focused on medical students. I'm more focused on people that have finished a couple of years, 3, 4 years, and they're just looking for residency.
Hmm.
And talk to several of them, help them strategize, and see what's it's a better way forward for them.
Okay, so I love what you said. Being open-minded is a good thing, and not just closing your mind and focusing on one thing. Being consistent doesn't mean being rigid. That's very powerful. So if you're listening right now, you can follow Dr. Lajide Richard Lawoyin on LinkedIn. I don't know if he's accepting new mentees, but even from his
Uh,
content,
I, I I don't think I'll ever stop accepting new mentees.
oh, great. So if
Yeah.
you're listening right now, follow Dr. Lajide Richard Lawoyin on LinkedIn. Even if you don't have direct access to him, his content are inspiring enough. And there's nothing wrong following someone that has done what you are thinking of doing and learning from their works. Okay. So I would love to end by asking you this one. What is the most powerful piece of advice that you've ever received?
Ah, well, that means somebody just talking to me, because
Maybe
I think
maybe you read it in a book or
yeah, the most impact anybody has ever had on me is my dad.
wow.
That's above, and it's just, I think, and I think that I say that because I guess it was because I was a kid and I was very impressionable at that point.
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe if I was in my teens, maybe I was in my 20s or 30s, maybe it wouldn't have had as much impact as he did. But, as a 7-year-old kid to 14 to 15, when I spent time with him, his outlook to life, the way he talked to me, what he modeled to me, the hard work that he did, it just blew me away as a kid,
Oh
and
wow.
that had so much impact on me. I probably didn't tell you when I came to the U.S. When I finally got to the US, I wanted to, my dad actually started in Ohio, a small town called Dublin, Ohio. He went to Dublin College where he did his
Okay.
pre-medicine. I ended up going to, started off in Ohio, and then I went to, from Ohio, and I went to Michigan, where, he had done his GI fellowship in Detroit. I didn't go to that part of Michigan because it's a little
Okay.
rougher there. I went to the other part of Michigan. And Detroit is a great place. I actually have properties there, so it's nothing on Detroit. Detroit is actually has really improved over the years. But
Mm.
I was on the other side of the state, closer to Lake Michigan, where I worked. But I just meant that I almost wanted to follow his footsteps
I can
physically.
imagine. Yeah.
That was how much impact he had on
Yeah,
me.
don't you?
But coming to what kind of what advice somebody has given me that's really really worked is is having a mentor.
Mm.
I keep going back to mentoring. Um, a lot of people can do things. They say if you want to go fast or
Fast to go
whatever, go
alone,
alone. If you want to go
go
far, go
far. You
together. There is this thing to be said about I have mentors. I don't even in 4 or 5 years time I'll probably still have a mentor.
mm.
I believe that soundboarding on somebody who is ahead of you in the journey that you want to take is it's invaluable.
Yeah.
Now that we talked about it, I remember the story, and I've said this on another show before. There was one of these mentees I had from Nigeria. He's actually in the US right now, but he didn't match this time around. So we're kind of talking about it. This was around the month of March, and I was. And I was telling him how to strategize, things that had happened that he could do better on. And we spoke for about an hour, and then after we were rounding up, he said, "Wow, I've reached out to this many people, and most of them didn't even, spend time with. Some of them spent 5 minutes. You spent over an hour." And I said, "Look," he said, you're so good." They were just being grateful. And I said, "Look, I'm
Mm.
I'm selfish. You don't think I'm getting anything from this?" Oh, he said, "No, no, no, you're just being." I'm like, "No, I get personal satisfaction from talking to you." So
Mm.
I think that even if you are talking to a mentor or somebody that's mentoring you, it's a two-way thing. That's what I'm trying to say. Even though this person is pouring into you as his mentee, uh, most mentors, whether they agree or not, they get that satisfaction
Action.
seeing you do better,
Yeah.
seeing you. And as human beings, nobody's an island.
True.
We need to kind of work together and come together and help pull other people to where we're at, just as other people are trying to pull us up, hopefully.
Thank you, Dr. Lajide. I each time you talk about your dad, it just gives me a little bit different perspective to life, knowing that it's not just about the quantity of time or the amount of time, it's about the quality of time that you spend with people or each other. This is someone that you had limited time. I could say maybe average of active, let's say 7 years,
Hmm.
but the impact is still here, even
Hmm.
long after he's gone. So
Yeah,
that's a big lesson for me. I have an 8-year-old, and I just have to be more intentional
yeah,
to spend more quality time with him. And not just about quantity, quality time. Okay. And I really love the mentorship part. It's a big deal, especially when you are in a new country or in a new field trying to navigate your way. There are two ways to learn. You either figure it out on your own or you learn from someone that's done it before. Obviously, learning from someone is an easier way to get it done. So thank you so much, Dr. Olajide, for coming. I think this is a good point to call it a day. It's been an amazing time with you. Thank you for sharing all your insights on this episode. And how can we contact you?
yeah. LinkedIn is the my main point of contact. I'm on LinkedIn. Anybody can DM me on LinkedIn. Like you said, we talked about mentees. If there are people in my field in the early part of their journey, I'm happy to talk to anybody. Obviously, my time may not be as robust as I might want it to be. But I try to message people directly as much as I can. And and I'm going to have somebody help me in that process going forward.
Right.
I'm also on Instagram. I've not really done much on Instagram yet, but I'm hoping to do more on Instagram later. They can email me. I just started a company called 3DS Capital Investment. Launched that off the platform of Excite Capital. So
Okay.
and they can reach me through Excite Capital as well. So I'm very, very much involved in Excite Capital. And I always tell them they can't get rid of me, I'm stuck with them.
Right.
So but that's on the real estate side.
Okay.
But I also have a Gmail account. It's just my first initial L and then my last name, Lawoyin at gmail.com. That's another way to reach out to me.
Okay. Thank you. So do you also help people in investing in real estate? Is that what 3D Capitals
Yes.
does?
Yes, yeah, that's
Okay.
what 3DS Capital is about. We help people with raise capital, come together as a community.
Mm,
Some of these assets are industrial grade assets that over the years have only been accessible to some huge companies.
yeah.
Now they are accessible to individuals like us, but
Wow.
one person cannot
Cannot play
secure
the
it.
game.
So we can all come together and secure these individual industrial grade assets, and add value to them and exit. And once you know what you're doing, this is a great, great, great way to make passive income. And most of
Amazing.
the good thing is that if you're doing it yourself, you got to be the landlord, and they got to call you for the toilets and the plumbing. And I've done this since 2011. I get called, and my wife get called, and but with this industrial grade assets, you don't have to worry about that.
You
You just
outsource
have
all
to
that.
worry about your capital. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. Collaborating together and working as a
exactly.
community. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that's one thing that our community is missing because I study other communities in this part of the world. They make
Hmm.
some significant progress because they're able to work together. And I'm glad that you guys are doing that right now. So I'm excited about the future of the company and the future of immigrants moving to this part of the world. Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful story and all these insights on the Thriving Immigrant Podcast. If you are listening to me for the first time or you're a returning subscriber, thank you for listening. Subscribe and share this with someone. Till I come your way again, stay thriving.